no, it's going to be safer for us to travel at night. So actually, can you have those horses ready by like 9? And the Ulster said, okay, dude.
That's Ostler, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Not Ulster. Ostler.
I like Ulster better, but you're right. It's Ostler. I'm sorry, you guys.
Also spelled,
he's a stable hand.
Yeah. Stable hand.
Stable hand. Also spelled with an H or without an H.
Yeah.
Because it's got the French pronunciation with the H is silent.
With the H in hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So the guy who's in charge of the horses says, yeah, okay, we can get those horses ready for you by 9, no problem.
Jerk, I got nothing else to do.
So at 7, when he woke up from his fitful sleep, Benjamin Bathurst. I just realized I've been calling him Benjamin this entire time. Now I'm switching to Bathurst. Sorry.
You're getting a little too familiar there.
Yeah, sorry. Mr. Bathurst.
That's better.
Dismisses his guards. So at 7, he dismisses his guards. And then he goes outside to oversee the reloading of his things onto the carriage, which is just like on the back of the carriage.
Again, a very high enclosed vehicle.
Yeah. So he goes out. He steps around the horses, like onto the other side of where the horses are.
Yeah, I heard the story as he and Herr Kraus basically headed out to like hop aboard, and he like basically headed around the front of the horses, basically as if he was going to climb into the driver's seat if you were an American on the left-hand side driving the car. And then
you have heard that account. That account is inaccurate.
That's not the only account that I've ever heard. That's one of the accounts.
But that's not, as far as I can tell, that's not actually what happened.
Yeah.
But we can do the fantasy.
But there are other accounts say that he left to go check out the horses
several minutes ahead of time.
So why don't we just tell the fantasy version real quick here.
The one that you hear the most often.
Yeah. So the fantasy version is that Kraus and Bathurst go out, and then so Bathurst goes around the front of the horses to get in the driver's seat, and just disappears into thin air.
So basically, he disappears behind the horse and then never reappears.
Never reappeared at the door of the carriage.
Yeah.
Or the ladder, or whatever
it was.
Yeah.
The seat. Yeah.
The more reputable accounts I've heard of this says that Bathurst went out to check on the horses and to oversee the loading of his things on there.
A little bit before Kraus.
Yeah, and Kraus was still inside. And then when Bathurst didn't return for an hour, went outside and was like, have you guys seen that guy? And everyone was like, no, he just disappeared.
Well, and I remember seeing some stuff. There was some discussion that Kraus had presumed that maybe he had gone to the outhouse, or maybe he had gone back in the building, and unbeknownst to Kraus, or maybe he had gone back to see who was the guy that assigned the soldiers to him.
Yeah. You mean Captain Klitzig?
Yeah, like maybe he had gone back to see him for some unknown reason.
Yeah.
So he's just like, you know what? He's my boss. He does this stuff. I'm just going to hang out and wait for him. Is really kind of what...
Well, sure. Why not? I mean,
yeah.
he had no idea that he disappeared.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, Bathurst's attendants, obviously, as soon as they realized he was missing, went looking for him, but they didn't find anything, and it was also kind of the middle of the night. I mean, November, 9 p.m.,
it's
not
like
exactly
right now.
Like
it's going to be
light out.
dark. Yeah.
Like it is for us right now.
Super
it
dark.
Is super dark
and
out.
it's not even 9 yet.
And it's it's not 9.
Yeah. So that's it. That's our story, kind of.
Well, there's
a couple other details.
So a couple other little details to add here. On December 16th, 2 old women... Okay, I guess I should back up a little bit. The version that I am choosing to believe is Bathurst was traveling with more than one attendant, I believe.
And not unusual for those
Which
days.
is definitely not unusual. I think carriage thing that they had, and then there were attendants that were following. Maybe on foot, maybe on horseback, but kind of at a safe distance, so it didn't seem like it was this huge entourage of an important person. But they were all there. And so it is my understanding that Kraus stayed in Pearlsburg, to investigate this disappearance and sent the additional attendants on to England to deliver the news of Bathurst's disappearance. But you will see often in other versions that Kraus was the only one traveling with him and was the attendant that went on to the UK or to London to report his disappearance and then returned to do some more investigation.
And I think that's the problem with this story, is because this story is 200 years old, and it is very exaggerated at times.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit.
And it has been exaggerated many times over the decades.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why we have this differing
Well, there are many
variations of who was there and who delivered the he's missing declaration.
So I will tell you the reason that I believe that Krauss stayed behind is that Krauss was familiar with Bathurst's family. He had been his attendant for a very long time. I think since he had become a diplomat. That's my understanding, that he had kind of been his main attendant. So he was familiar and friendly with the Bathurst family. And in Tryphina's version of this story, she went with her father when they had been called by a local magistrate to receive this news. So they went to the magistrate house, and the magistrate said, an attendant came and told me that Benjamin Bathurst is missing. And it is my sense that had Krauss, this longtime attendant and like good family friend, been the one to deliver the news, he would have been there, and she would have mentioned, Krauss was there. So that's my reasoning behind that.
That makes sense.
Just so people know.
I'll run with that.
I mean, it's totally possible. It's different. Like you said, it's like 200 years old, so who knows? Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and assume that Krauss stayed and everybody else went.
All right.
So on December 16th, so 3-ish weeks later,
yeah.
2 old women brought Krauss a pair of pants that they said belonged to Bathurst.
Well,
they said they found them in the woods while they were gathering firewood.
Yeah, they were later ID'd as
maybe
pants.
his pants.
And yeah, that's true. They weren't.
They were gray trousers.
But yeah.
Well, there was
a letter.
There was a letter in them.
There was a letter, but we can talk about that letter in a second. They found them apparently in a stand of trees, a copse of trees.
Copse. Which one?
Copse.
Okay.
Just outside of town. They contained nothing but 2 bullet holes and a hand-scrawled in pencil note on a scrap of paper to Benjamin Bathurst's wife.
Okay.
I am not 100% convinced that this was actually from him.
Well, and there's no blood.
There's no blood, so the bullet holes are likely fake. And I think it's likely that this letter is fake. They say it was scrawled in, like kind of a really haphazard handwriting. I don't believe that this is his.
Well, and I feel like there's a bit of fanciful addition.
Oh, yeah.
Because the letter says, I don't trust so-and-so and I'm going to be betrayed, and please don't marry again.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the actual contents of this note in theories.
Okay.
Because it does feed into one of the theories.
Okay.
But it is my general sense that pretty much everything, whether these were his pants or not, they may have actually been his pants, but that pretty much everything surrounding his pants was totally falsified. I don't think the note was his. I don't think the bullet holes
found
were
his name embroidered in the.
Yeah,
well, the bullet holes were real. They just weren't.
They weren't
fired when he was in the pants,
or anyone was in the pants. And I should note that it's very likely that these pants were planted there a couple days before they were found, or maybe even that the old women were lying
in on it.
Yeah, we're lying about
they murdered him and they put the pants out there.
Or they didn't. I mean, they didn't have to put the pants out there. They could have just brought them and said, "We found these in the woods when we were looking for mushrooms." Blah. We're old women. Believe us.
Of course.
Old ladies are always looking for mushrooms.
Yeah.
In the woods.
Yeah. So Bathurst's his wife and her brother traveled to Germany to find out what had happened to Bathurst. There was definitely, at the time, a lot of rumors about this being a French conspiracy to get rid of this diplomat. So they apparently, again, according to the fanciful version, had an audience with Napoleon himself.
I did not know what you were talking about.
Much more likely, some like random proxy for Napoleon met with them, and of course just said, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." Like, no, who? Bathurst? Bathurst? No, I don't know who that person
never
is.
Heard of the name.
Never heard the name.
I don't know what that is.
No, a bath? I don't know. Is that some sort of newfangled way to bathe yourself? I don't understand.
I know.
That whole description right there, now I cannot get Napoleon from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure out of my head.
Right?
Oh, that's right.
Because that is exactly how he behaved.
I got to see that movie again. It's been too long.
Oh,
everything I know about history.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's everything I know about history.
He and Genghis Khan, right up there, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what is it? Socrates.
Socrates.
Socrates, yeah.
So now we're on to theories.
Woohoo!
So in true Devon fashion, we're doing like there's a couple subheadings of theories.
You mean riddled with bullet points?
Yeah.
Are they real bullet points or fake?
They're real bullet points.
Oh, okay.
Blood
Have you
and
seen the tears in this paper?
Yeah.
So the first kind of subheading of theories is thief or theft,
Theft? Yeah, that
depending
makes sense.
on like if you do spell check or not.
Yeah. He was obviously well worth robbing.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So it turns out that Bathurst, just even the way he was dressing, notwithstanding, he may have been like pulling out his really expensive pocket watch and like flaunting it around and kind of flashing his really heavy coin purse around in this tiny
also
little
wearing his
kind of poverty-ridden town.
Yeah, a place that was kind of in a war zone.
Yeah.
There were refugees and bandits, and he's wearing this massively expensive sable coat with his diamond pin through his
Yeah.
scarf
I really
and
feel
everything.
like he was a bit naive
Oh,
of the ways of
yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
Because he'd been raised to be a diplomat. He'd been raised to be around the court all the time.
And to be an
He had no
aristocrat.
idea that people would assign value to this itty-bitty stone on a pin that I just used to hold my scarf in place.
Well, I think likely he did actually know that people would assign value to that, but the value that he thought that people would assign to that was respect, right?
That's a good
Because
point.
if you're a diplomat, that's how you garner respect, is you make an entrance as somebody who should be listened to because they dress in the way that, garners respect.
But
And if you're a cut purse,
But-
it garners a meal.
Yeah, but if you're in like rural war-torn Pearlburg,
they don't know about diplomatic.
that's not like,
niceties,
hey,
you know?
respect. You're like, hey, look at that idiot. He has a lot of stuff that I would like to have. Thank you.
I'm gonna go
and
grab his
I
Nikes.
bet I could hit him over the head and just take it all.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right. So it's not unlikely that this was a theft. But there's two different ways that this could have gone down. One is it could have been a theft and like dropping like Left 4 Dead sort of situation, or it could have been a theft and murder. And let's talk about both theories. 'Cause
Aren't these kind of the same?
they're a little the same. One is that
One
he
implies an
survived.
intention to kill, and the other implies
the
that
intention just to cosh him, but they accidentally
yeah, it's
killed him.
the old TV show. I bonk you over the head and take your stuff, and you wake up an hour later and go, I have a goose egg, and I'm naked. Whoops.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna talk about the like theft and being dropped theory first. This comes from Tryphina's book. It's like a footnote in her book, actually, and we'll link to this book. It's on Google Play. I think it's probably like a free resource at this point. It's like almost 200 years old.
So royalty free at this point.
Yeah,
I hope so.
No copyrights.
I don't think you have to buy it to read it. It's all on Google, which is pretty great, actually.
I do like that.
And pro tip, we're going to post the book, but you can like search within the book. Just search for Benjamin, and then you only get the pertinent stuff. Because it's a
not
long
a short book.
No, it's like all of the correspondence of her father. Anyway, apparently, it's pretty possible that he could have been abducted and, taken some of the valuable stuff, but left some other stuff, and then he was just kind of like in the middle of nowhere and didn't really know where to go. So there's this one account from a quote-unquote girl at the time, and I'm pretty sure that what girl means is like young woman who works in a house, not
be.
like an actual child.
AKA
girl.
servant girl.
Yeah, but she reported that a couple days after Bathurst disappeared, she worked in the house of a consul near the sea, which was a considerable distance, quote unquote, from Pearlburg, but it was on the sea. So I don't think it's like that much. I don't know how.
100 miles or so.
Yeah.
100, 200 miles ballparkish.
Yeah, but not like 1,000 miles or
Right.
anything like that.
It's about a week's travel.
Yeah. So
On foot.
Yeah, on foot. And it was, I would say, like 4 or 5 days later, she reported that a man had come knocking at the door late at night on a rainy night. And she said that she, took her little light, whether it was a candle or like a hurricane lantern or something, to answer the door, and saw for a brief moment a man who, quote, matched Bathurst's description. He was wearing a traveling cap and a short fur-trimmed coat, basically. She called it a roquier, which is like a lined and trimmed coat, which like reaches to the knee. That's got a was trimmed with fur with a bright lining.
Kind of like that sable coat that our protagonist
similar.
was wearing.
Yeah. And so she answers the door and catches a glimpse of him. But of course, since it's a rainy night, the light blows out. So she only catches a glimpse of him.
It's got to be a little creepy.
Yeah, and a guy with an English accent asks for the master of the house, and she says, well, he's not in right now. Also, it's the middle of the night, so she's probably like, he's asleep, dude. Like, what are you doing? But she says, he's not in right now, but I'll tell him you called, right? You were here, if you'll tell me who you are. And he says, never mind that. But he asked her to tell her master that an English gentleman wanted to see him at the post house tomorrow. So her master did actually go. Like, I wouldn't do it, but okay. Went to the post house and actually asked after the gentleman, and it turned out that he had just been there and he had just left. But apparently an English gentleman had actually been at the post house waiting for him in the morning. And there's 2 separate reports of boats who originated from the area where this consul was in charge of, wrecked at sea.
Being lost at sea.
Yeah, being lost at sea. So there's the theory that Bathurst was this like weird gentleman caller, and that he had been trying to get help from the consul, but had somehow otherwise booked passage.
Yeah, but it couldn't have been him because he's wearing this long fur coat, but Bathurst's fur coat was found back in Pearlburg.
Well, like later.
Yeah, it was found. But it was found later back in Pearlsburg.
It was.
Or Pearlburg.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're right. This probably wasn't him.
Probably was not.
Well, but the credibility for this is that at that time in an Austrian area, there is not a whole lot of Englishmen running around. You know, I mean, this is French-controlled territory. That is what one of the things the Battle of Wagram did.
Oh, you're right.
And
I'm sorry.
the Federation of the Rhine, that his whole area is now controlled by Napoleon. It's French.
Yeah. So but I guess
it's hostile territory. It's not as if I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna take a vacation. No, you're not gonna do that.
no, but it is a time where you probably are going to see a lot of weird English gentlemen showing up at friendly houses saying like, help, in the middle of the night, right? I mean, I guess for me it's an easy coincidence.
My response to that is a lot of those wars were not sudden or unexpected. In other words, if you are a tradesman traveling an area and you can tell that the threat is imminent, you don't go, you know what, I'll finish my business and then I'll kind of make my way out. No, you get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Most of those guys would have fled. And this is in December. The Battle of Wagram happened in July. That is many, many months later.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
Well, some people like to live dangerously.
That's true. Some are very just blatantly oblivious.
Yeah.
But
okay, so let's talk about the theory that it was a theft and a murder, right? That, like, he just got hit over the head as he was walking past the horses and dragged somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, like, the guy who they, gave the guy who's in charge of the horses, they gave a couple coins to and said, like, hey, just say he disappeared. Bye. Said, oh, hey, he just disappeared. I have no idea what happened. And then, thus became an unsolved mystery. There's some really good evidence for this one. On April 15th of 1852, during a demolition of a house on Homburg Road, which was in Pearlburg, which was pretty close to the inn, the White Swan, where Bathurst had been staying. There was a skeleton that was discovered under the threshold of the stable area. The back of the skull showed a pretty significant fracture that was obviously like from a blow of a heavy instrument and would have
blunt
killed
force trauma.
someone. Yeah. All of the upper teeth of this skull were quote unquote perfect for the time.
Well, obviously it wasn't British.
Perfect.
Good point.
But the lower jaw, one of the lower molars showed signs of having been removed professionally, so by a dentist. So that's the sort of thing, that's like early dental records, right? that's an early sign of being able to say, yeah, my brother, Benjamin Bathurst, had one of his molars removed by a dentist at this time, so it's likely him.
There was a dentist, not a barber, who used a chisel to knock it out of your head.
Right, or like somebody got punched and it broke.
Yeah.
Usually molars don't get broken off from punching.